Every night while millions of Americans sleep, money keeps moving. Interest compounds, bills move closer to due dates, and debt quietly grows. Not because people are careless, but because most were never taught how this system actually works. When you look at the data, the financial position of the average American household is far more fragile than it appears. Hi, I'm Dan, and today we're diving into the most shocking money statistics about average people. And once you see these numbers, you'll have a much clearer picture of where you really stand financially. Let's start with a statistic that should make every working adult pause. According to the Federal Reserve, nearly 40% of Americans say they would struggle to cover a $400 emergency expense without borrowing money, selling something, or putting it on a credit card. Not because they don't earn money, but because they don't keep any of it. Think about that. A flat tire, a medical copay, a small home repair. Any one of those can knock millions of people off balance financially. What makes this especially dangerous is that it feels normal. When most people around you are living this way, it stops looking like a warning sign and starts feeling like reality. Humans don't measure success in absolute terms. We measure it relative to the people we see. And when financial stress becomes common, it becomes invisible. That's how fragile financial situations spread quietly, not because they're rare, but because they're widespread. And here's where it gets worse. While many households don't have enough liquid savings to handle a small emergency, the average household carries over $9,000 in credit card debt. That means for many people, their high-interest debt is dramatically larger than their emergency fund, if they even have one at all. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom while paying 20% interest for the privilege. The psychology behind this is surprisingly simple. Most people treat their credit limit as available money instead of borrowed money they'll have to repay with interest. A $5,000 credit limit feels like $5,000 in spending power, not a long-term obligation. Now let's talk about paychecks. Roughly 60 to 65% of Americans report living paycheck to paycheck, including a significant number of households earning six figures. As income rises, spending rises right alongside it. Lifestyle inflation quietly eats every raise, bonus, and promotion. One of the biggest reasons this happens is what economists sometimes call the time gap. The consequences of financial decisions are delayed. Overspending today doesn't hurt today. Debt doesn't feel heavy at first. Retirement feels distant, but money is cumulative. Decisions stack quietly for years before they show up all at once. This is why financial stress often feels sudden, even though it's been building for decades. Here's the part that should really bother you. After decades of working, the median household has only a few months' worth of expenses in easily accessible savings. That means after 30 or 40 years of labor, most people have built a financial cushion that wouldn't last a single season without income. And retirement is where the numbers get genuinely unsettling. According to Federal Reserve data, Americans aged 55 to 64, people approaching retirement, have a median retirement balance of roughly $90,000. That's not a typo. About $90,000 to fund what could be 20 to 30 years of life after work. Using conservative withdrawal rules, that amount might generate $300 to $400 per month in retirement income. That's not financial freedom. That's financial survival. Meanwhile, most financial planners estimate that a modest retirement often requires $800,000 to $1 million saved. The gap between what people have and what they need is enormous. Now let's look at spending behavior. The average household spends over $67,000 per year. Housing, transportation, food, entertainment, it all adds up fast. For many families, there's simply nothing left at the end of the month to save or invest. Americans save about 5 to 6% of their income after taxes on average, and that savings has to cover everything. Emergencies, cars, home repairs, vacations, not just retirement. What most people miss isn't how much they spend, but what that spending quietly replaces. Every dollar has only one job. When it goes toward convenience, impulse, or short-term comfort, it's no longer available for flexibility, security, or future options. The tragedy is that this trade-off is invisible in the moment. Nothing breaks immediately. No alarm goes off. But over time, the cost shows up as stress, limited choices, and dependence on work longer than expected. Here's a number that changes how you see money. The average American will earn between $2 and $2.5 million over their working lifetime. Millions of dollars pass through their hands, yet many retire with less than six figures saved. This is not an income problem. It's a behavior problem. Now let's talk about total debt. When you combine mortgages, student loans, auto loans, and credit cards, the average household carries well over $100,000 in total debt. A large portion of their monthly income goes toward interest, money that produces absolutely nothing in return. Student loan borrowers owe an average of $35,000 to $40,000, often paying for decades. Car payments average over $500 per month, and many people never experience adult life without one. But here's the quiet wealth killer almost no one notices: small recurring expenses, coffee, takeout, subscriptions, impulse buys. Individually, they seem harmless, but over a year, many households spend several $1,000s on convenience and short-term pleasure, while claiming they can't afford to invest $100 per month in their future. That's how wealth disappears. Not all at once, but slowly and invisibly through thousands of small decisions. Credit card companies understand this perfectly. Minimum payments feel manageable even though they barely cover interest. At 20% interest, carrying a balance for years can triple the true cost of what you bought. Here's the most important realization from all of this. Most people aren't bad with money. They're uninformed, unprepared, and operating inside a system that rewards consumption and punishes patience. But once you understand these numbers, everything changes. The same math that keeps people trapped in debt can work in your favor. Saving more than average, avoiding high-interest debt, investing consistently. Beating the average by just a little in multiple areas compounds into massive results over time. One uncomfortable truth about beating average is that it's rarely exciting. It doesn't look like sudden wealth. It looks like restraint. It looks like boring consistency. It looks like not upgrading when you technically could. That's why so few people do it. Well, not because it's hard, but because it doesn't feel rewarding in the short term. But boring financial behavior compounds into extraordinary outcomes over time. If these statistics shocked you, that's a good thing. Awareness is the first step toward doing better than average. Because average isn't neutral. Average leads to stress, dependence, and regret. And now that you know what average really looks like, the choice to do better is entirely yours. If this made you rethink what normal actually looks like, that's the point. Most people never slow down enough to look at the numbers. They just react to them. If you want more calm, honest breakdowns like this that help you make better decisions over time, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.